Are we starting? I always like to be a little surprised.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Jillette. My name is Michael Godot. Matt Donnelly, Penn and I are broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios South in Las Vegas. We're going to talk a little bit about the Piff Pop appearance at a magician's convention that scandalized the magic world. And because Ray and Julieanna are here, I'll mention that 781 people have reported losing 37,515 pounds, which is actually pretty close to the low limit of the standard issue garbage truck. Here he is preaching love, Mr. Penn Jillette.
Yeah, preaching love.
40,000 pounds.
You know, I will tell you, Julieanna and CrayRay, that I have not done a show on the road this year. I believe this is true. I have not done a show on the road this year that at least one person has not come up and said they lost more than 100 pounds.
That's crazy. That's amazing.
And I never do a show anywhere that we don't get at least 3 people who've lost over 30 pounds.
I think I get an email or a message almost every day, at least one, saying that because of that. Because of you, they've lost significant amount of weight.
And they're all, I mean, I haven't seen anybody say, I went to all that work to lose that weight, and boy, it wasn't worth it. Not one person said that. They all seem, and I've also had people come who are on a very long program, who have lost 100 pounds and are planning on losing another 120. You know,
They're constantly tagging us online.
They
and
got a long way to go, long way to go.
Yeah, but they're determined.
I guess I'll ask you this, although it's off subject, but I think since you're here, I'll ask you. Nathan Thomas, do you know whether Penn has tried the Wim Hof method? So go ahead, CrayRay.
Yeah, so Wim is a good friend. He is really amazing in that he demonstrates the fact that we have this ability to experience really cold temperatures. This is part of that paper metabolic winter hypothesis, that we have, just like we have the ability to withstand long durations without food, but we think that that's scary. The other thing, and unfortunately I got dinged with both of these things nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to not eat, and nobody wants to be cold, right? So, but it also, we actually have the ability to basically experience very cold temperatures and do fine. And so what's been interesting about Wim's work is that, first, it's not, even though he is a Guinness Book of World Record holder in terms of exposure and cold, he also believes anybody can do this, that anybody can train themselves to do it. And the second thing is that it's been really important for him to involve the science community to try to get information.
So he's different than David Blaine.
Yes.
He's not just an endurance artist.
Right. He also wants to get to the science, and what he's been able to do is impact autonomic immune function.
Well, I guess we should say a little more about who he is and what he does, because we're starting in the middle of a conversation.
A Dutch extreme athlete noted for his abilities to withstand freezing temperatures. He set Guinness World Records for swimming under ice and prolonged full-body contact with ice. Still holds the record for a
prolonged full-body contact with ice?
Yeah.
Completely submerged.
Completely submerged, yeah. Really horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
he attributes these to his method, the Wim Hof method, combination of frequent cold exposure and breathing techniques and meditation.
See, I'll tell you, we did probably the worst bit Penn and Teller ever did, and it was my idea. We wanted to do a gag. There's a story of Houdini who tried to do an escape from a beer barrel.
Like a keg?
Yeah, and there was a problem because he might have been a little inebriated. He was a non-drinker, and I thought it was a really funny thing. So we tried to do a thing for a New Year's Eve show. We built a giant champagne glass, and we're going to be submerged in it. And the idea was that we were supposed to escape, and because the champagne we were both non-drinkers. We both got a little drunk and couldn't do the escape, and there was an ambulance there, and it was supposed to be. But as usual with my ideas like this, it was a brutal, horrible failure. It was not entertaining. No one understood it. Wasn't a good gag. Wasn't a good trick. People hated it. Other than that, total success. So when we first wanted to do it,
You're bringing it back for this year's show?
yeah, bring it back. I do that kind of stuff. You know, I remember I was asked once,
I know.
what's the worst trick you ever did? I told somebody that I got to thinking about it, and then a week later we put it in the show again. Just the kind of guy I am. But we did the first run of it in a warehouse in Hoboken, and we filled a huge vat with tap water. And I wanted to go in to see what it would look like underwater for the camera and how it would look to do the keys and stuff with my hands. And I don't know how cold the water was. I don't know what regular tap water is, but I assume maybe 60 degrees, maybe 55 degrees. I don't know, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I went into that water and I had a physical reaction that I thought I was going to fucking die. They had to pull me out. I was hyperventilating. I could not get my breath. I could not stop shivering. And I thought I'd done permanent damage to myself. What's different in what Wim does?
So this is actually very related to lots of things that you guys have to do in your show, which is when we're exposed to cold, the body's natural response is vasoconstrict. So to constrict those blood vessels and force the blood all to the core, protect the core. You know? Mm-hmm. And so what that ends up doing is cutting off circulation to the extremities, which is why you get frostbite of the ears, the nose, the toes. You don't get frostbite of the head, you know? Mm-hmm. So what you're really trying to do at the
ears
base,
and nose are on your head.
But you don't get the circulation. It's extremities.
I'm going to go ahead and run that through our fact check operation. Make sure we
the point is, and it's an important point, because our natural response is sort of this fight or flight panic, which causes...
I had panic, unbelievable panic.
And so just like when Teller has, and you are doing the stuff with the bees, and the natural response if you get stung is to jump, you have to be able to relax.
How much cold stuff have you done?
I've done a lot of cold.
How cold?
I mean, freezing. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not under ice. I don't do that. Well,
Lord, you don't want to hear this. His farthest swim under the ice is a distance of 57.5 meters, and the test run on the previous day it almost ended in disaster when his cornea started to freeze.
Yeah.
And he was swimming blind
or running a half marathon. So just look at that picture, and that's an event completely submerged in ice.
And that's just cracked ice like from a Slurpee.
Yes. And so
it's just a guy in a Slurpee, his head sticking out of a Slurpee.
Yeah, and it's high surface area, so it really sucks that heat out of your body. But you have the ability to withstand it. You can generate the heat internally. The problem is this natural response of cutting off the circulation. So if you're sitting there for 3 hours and you got the circulation cut off from your toes, you're going to lose them. And he's had some issues like he climbed to Everest and made it almost to the top in shorts and no shirt. So
his shorts and shoes.
But here's the point. The point of it is that we do have the ability to withstand much more than we think.
What do you mean he almost made it? That was a double take.
There you go.
What do you mean almost?
He almost made it all the way to the top.
The
only reason
did he die?
No. What happened was he had run a half marathon barefoot on ice and snow just prior to that, and he did get frostbite doing that. And then he was having this issue, and this is another thing about Wim. He could feel that his feet weren't getting the circulation he needed, and he just said, "Okay, I'm done." Turned around, went back, and he's almost there. And obviously, a lot of people get killed by trying to push.
You can't say that he is prudent when he'd already gotten frostbite running barefoot on the ice. You can't say that's the kind of guy he is prudent. Once you get frostbite, you cannot claim to be prudent anymore.
No, that's not true.
He turned around at 23,600 feet. That's prudent. He didn't die. A lot of people die on Everest.
There are a lot of frozen people up there. They're not prudent.
I am running it through the fact check machine again, and sure enough, not dying is prudent. I'm sorry. Nose and ears on face confirmed.
And what is?
But I didn't say face. I said
I meant head. Sorry.
Now, what is?
I blew the joke.
But what is the? This is the part we're going to get to. This is the most important question I'll ask. What's the upside?
The upside is that the other thing he's been able to do is suppress his
Public
autonomic
speaking.
his autonomic immune response, such that when you get, for example, a denatured virus injected, which you normally would you'd respond with fever and nausea and vomiting, he can suppress all of that and not have those responses. And why is that important? Well, being able to, through meditation, through breathing, through these kinds of things, to be able to suppress this autonomic response, something that used to be, by the definition, you wouldn't control it. The fact that you can control it and push beyond that is, I think, significant. I think it's significant because, there would be certain situations where if you could suppress certain response, I mean, that's what you're doing when you're doing meditation, for example. If you're trying to suppress a certain for someone trying to suppress anxiety or trying to suppress these kinds of things. So it's about that
meditation
control.
people would not describe it that way.
But no, I'm saying
I
you
just
can
feel
use it
in case this is the one day that Sam Harris listens.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying you can use that kind of. I'm not saying that that's why they do it. I'm saying you can use that to calm.
It's the accepting of the anxiety.
Well, exactly, but the net result is you don't get the panic.
You
response.
don't ever stop experiencing it. You just experience it fully without fighting it. And that's the big difference.
And that's exactly what he's doing with cold.
I have a question for the host here. Did you bring this guy up thinking that CrayRay was going to be like, what this guy gets wrong versus what I got right is this? Or did you know that he was going to love this guy?
I knew he loved this guy.
Okay.
Wait, but from a practical application perspective, did CrayRay never have you do contrast showers?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
We just didn't do ice.
That's mild. Yeah.
So I
forgave him.
I have a swim spa at home that I can take all the way down to 45 degrees. And what was kind of interesting is that you get to the point where you can really, where it does not feel bad at, say, that 55 to 60 degrees. So mild cold stress in water starts at 80 degrees F. In air, it's about 60. When you really get below 60 F in water, now you're in hypothermia land, where the average person can get hypothermia. But of course, all these triathletes are swimming in temperatures that are often, like in the guys that swim.
Well, they're often in wetsuits.
Yeah, but but they still get exposure. And so
guess who's not? The guy we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. So
the tallest wonder?
So the interesting thing here is
Noseless?
that building up that that endurance and building up the exposure is something that is just like going without food. For you were talking earlier about now this idea that you don't eat till a certain time of the day. For a lot of people, they're really having a fit by noon if they think you made the joke yesterday. I fasted overnight.
Oh yeah.
That's why it's called breakfast.
Right.
Fast of evening.
No, I went to the doctor and they're like, you're gonna have to get blood work done. You're gonna have to fast for over 8 hours before you get your blood work done. And I go, oh, okay. And then because I laughed, they're like, you have to do it for over 8 hours. You have to do it. And I was like, yeah. No, I get it.
Right.
And then they're like, the same thing on the way out. The nurse, everyone clarified me like 8 hours. And I was like, buddy, no problem.
Yeah. And so, and that person that says, and they really feel it, I haven't eaten all day. And so for me, there's like this freeing experience. I know as long as I have water and you guys all say, hey, go, I know I can at least make it to 24 days. Right. Because I've done it before. And so I think I know
I can at least do 14.
That's right. And that is, it does take a huge...
I know I can go more than 8 hours.
And we should mention, Wim Hof also ran a full marathon in the Namibian desert without water.
Yes.
So, no, you don't need the water either, okay?
And he didn't
make it clear.
And he didn't train for it either. He didn't train. He just went
advice.
down there and ran 26.2 miles, which in a desert with no water.
And you like this guy.
Well, I do.
Not try this at home?
I do, not because everyone needs to do it, but
you don't have a desert. That's why. You don't have Everest at home. You don't have a desert at home. You're straight. You're easy not trying this at home. Unless your house includes Everest and a desert, that's not a warning we need. Who are you talking to? Bill Gates just built a house around Everest and included a desert.
There you go. No, I think in modern society, the idea of recognizing what is truly extreme and what can the body survive is something important. Because right now, and the issue of chronic overnutrition, the fact that we're in the fed state all the time, has huge ramifications in health over a lifetime. It's great for reproduction. It's great for the short term. It's great for passing on your genes from an evolutionary perspective. But from a long-term perspective, meaning those kinds of things you're going to get after 45 or 50 when evolution's done with you, it's actually less is more. And so I think that people doing the extreme make doing what you should do in a normal sense, eat, as Hippocrates said, do you eat once or twice a day? I think it makes that...
Once a day with peanut butter.
That's right. So I do think there is a value, and the fact that Wim has taken this beyond that, not just there, but
he's got 6 kids.
That's right.
He's taking it way out there.
Oh,
So the fact that he's taken it to the point of being able to suppress autonomic immune response, I think is an interesting place where we want to go.
I'll tell you, if I were doing the show bullshit and someone said they could suppress that word that I can't say, we would just do a whole bullshit show on that.
I know. And he would beat you.
He would.
He would.
He can do it.
He can do it.
He also took this joke to the extreme, which is like, how much
Does
you
it
have to hate
say-
your kids to
do
go ice
you have
fishing?
that-
How much do you have to hate your kids?
Does it talk about this? It's a really fascinating study they did.
You just stepped
And he
on his
taught-
joke. Listen,
I'm
you
sorry.
don't step on his joke. Go ahead. I like this.
And he also taught other people to do it. And I think that's the most, in this case, I don't know if it's on that page.
So what would I have had to do in the champagne glass to
Controlled
not be in panic?
Hyperventilation. First phase involves 30 cycles of breathing. Each cycle goes as follows. Take a powerful breath in, fully filling the lungs. Breathe out by passively releasing the breath, but not actively exhaling. Repeat this cycle at a steady pace 30 times. This form of hyperventilation may lead to tingling sensations or lightheadedness. Exhalation. After completion of the 30 cycles of controlled hyperventilation, take another deep breath in and let it out completely. Hold the breath for as long as possible. And then breath retention. When strong urges to breathe occur, take a full deep breath in. Hold the breath for 15 to 20 seconds and let it go. The body may experience a normal head rush sensation. These 3 phases may be repeated for 3 consecutive rounds. So that's how you prepare for the cold.
See if you can find where it talks about the immune suppression.
How much do you have to hate your kids to run unprepared through a desert with no water?
They were in the car behind him. Dad.
How
Hey, Dad.
when do we get there?
But they're all
there. Are we almost there? Can we stop McDonald's? She hit me first. No, don't strangle your brother. No water. 26 miles. I'm doing great.
I stop her drink
But they're all part of the seminar business too. So in fact, Dad, please, can you go a little longer?
They're in, yeah.
Because
Right, they're making their money that way.
yeah,
we make
Enom and Laura, they're really great. They're actually a really neat family.
a half marathon doesn't get us as much buzz as a full marathon.
Dad, can you stay in the ice just a little bit longer?
How long has he been in the Slurpee?
I think it's 3 hours and something now. I don't know. He could stay longer. He just keeps breaking it by a little bit back to the magician trophy thing. So he can always be that, he can always, and if anybody comes along, he'll just go a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm. And he has to do special breathing that whole time. So
Well, actually, when he's doing that, he is breathing. But the biggest thing is that once your body learns to relax during that constriction,
exactly like the not eating.
Exactly like the not eating, and I believe all the way down to the cellular level that the mild cold stress and the food, the dietary restriction at a cellular level modify and allow us to do some of that repair work that we've seen in the
We've
research.
never really talked about this, but that Clapper said I had the worst fast he'd ever seen.
I know.
No, he said I never got any euphoria. I never got over the hunger. I never got any sort of positive feelings from it at all. He was amazed that I kept going.
Yeah, I think you just built up so much. You were thinking about all those other things, and I think it built up too much.
So we have to surprise you and throw you in a box.
I mean,
Surprise, you're in a Slurpee.
you really were anticipating this for lots of other reasons besides just the fats thing. And
You want
but there are some
psychedelics
people
without the drugs.
But he said, because he was with me every day.
Right.
And he was taking my blood pressure and doing all of that.
I was getting texts
every day. And he would just go, tomorrow you'll
feel better.
Yeah.
I think I texted you at some point during
Yeah.
there. You were saying you feel crappy.
And but I hung with it, and that was the thing that impressed him the most.
Yeah, but
was
you
the
have
two
an
sides.
unbelievable tolerance for pain.
Yeah, I do.
Like it's just crazy.
Magic. Speaking of my tolerance for pain, we got to get to this because otherwise it'll be old news.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Piff was accused by this guy named Nick DeFat. He was accused of stealing. In the magic community, stealing is rampant. People steal a lot. And there's a lot of people who just simply don't care. And there's also an ethical quality in the magic community that's very odd. It's not true in comedy or in theater, but it's true in magic that if you've published something, anyone can perform it, no matter where you published it. I mean, in theory, you need to have purchased that, But if you buy a book with a trick in it, with the pattern in it and the description in it and everything, by the creator, you can then go out and perform that as your own. So Dr. Steve Bedwell wrote this thing in Over Your Head. I bought his book. I learned it. I can go out every night and say that I invented that trick or imply I invented it. I happen to give him credit, but I don't have to. That's the rule. So when something is not published, you're not allowed to do it. And there's supposed to be an ethics in this. Well, sometimes it gets a little silly.
Yeah.
So Piff went on America's Got Talent, and at the end he used, we're going to learn a new word now. We're going to all learn a new phrase, air dancer. You know what the word air dancer means? Air dancer are those things that you would describe them by doing this. The air blowers outside of used car places, wobbly men, they call them all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Air dancers is what the company calls them. Okay, air dancers. Piff wanted to do a over-the-top punchline.
This was important is that this was Champions Edition.
Yeah.
Right? And so to each champion's coming back to they have to win that day, and so it was very comedic for all these champions to come back. And so Piff thought it'd be very funny to go over the top with my trick is over. Now everybody vote for me tonight. And he's up against like a 12-year-old girl singing and stuff like that. And so he thought it'd be really funny. He was over the top. So this happens during the celebration in which he's asking for votes.
Right. So he does air dancers. And then through a game of telephone that's unpleasant, this guy, Nick DeFat, finds out that Piff used air dancers on America's Got Talent and started going all over social media saying that Piff had stolen his act. Now, I need to stress the fact that there was no trick whatsoever.
Nick has a magic trick where the punchline is the air dancer is a part of it, and the air dancer...
Right. But there was no trick involved.
Right.
It was just using air dancers, like saying, I own the idea of fireworks,
Right.
And it turned into this thing where, and Piff came to me, because he sometimes does for advice, and said, what do I do to defend myself? I said, just don't. Just walk away. And I still believe that was good advice, but it let everybody just do Piff as a thief. So we went down to do a show in Orlando at the Genii Convention where all the magicians were going to be. And Piff said to me as we were discussing what we were going to do, because I had said Piff and Pop will perform. Piff said, fuck, I don't want to perform because that whole thing with Nick DeFat is still going on and people are going to be trashing me for stealing. And I said, well, let's do our whole show about stealing, right? Let's do the whole show about stealing. So that was the premise of the show, is that Pop, Piff's dad, played by me in a dragon suit, would come out and say, I've been looking into magic. I want to do a magic act. And then I started the intro to the Penn and Teller Cups and Balls. And Piff said, you can't do that. That's a Penn and Teller bit. And he said, magic has to be original. And I said, I've done some research. It sure doesn't look that way. So then it was me trying to get ideas that all involve stealing from people. And the ideas were very offensive. Like I pulled out a meth pipe and started smoking meth, not for real on stage. And Piff said, no, you can't do that. That's Amazing Jonathan's act. Yeah, it was stuff like that. And then Piff was so worried about Nick DeFat, and everybody was, and I'd never met him. And I just figured, sometimes you just talk to people and it's okay. So I called up Nick DeFat, who's really nice. He's 23 years
Charming,
old.
like, nice young guy.
Great guy. I called him and said, hi, this is Penn. We've never met, but we want to do this bit in Florida about stealing from you. And this whole thing's got out of control. You've got yourself in a corner. It sucks. Let's get you out. We're going to bring you on stage at the end and say, Piff stole from you, and then you'll shake hands and hug, and then you're going to put 2 air dancers up that say Piff and Pop to show there's no hard feelings, and then when we leave the stage, the other one will say, fuck you. And then you'll stand on stage the victor. And I said, then this whole thing is over, okay? And Nick, of course, said, great. I mean, that's how quickly this whole...
was very Johnny Thompson of you.
Yeah, this whole year-long thing was just over instantly. So we're backstage with Nick DeFat, and everybody's pretty surprised because Piff made me do this line 5 times. The whole thing became very, very meta because Piff and I were just leaned over reading the prompter. And there was a line in there that Glenn really didn't want me to do when I said, there's this whole thing with Nick DeFat where you stole from him. And Piff said, it was no big deal. Everybody's forgotten it. And I said, are you kidding? It was the 9/11 of magic. And Glenn said, oh, man, 9/11. Oh, Jesus. That's, So Piff heard.
I read this whole script before you guys went to Orlando, laughed my ass off and said, you're not really doing this. Are you?
The script is pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then, so we're doing this on stage, and I go, it was the 9/11 of magic. And Piff goes, I think you should deliver that again. I go, it was the 9/11 of magic. He said, now drop to your knees and look like the firefighters after 9/11 and look up and clutch at your chest and say, I think it was the 9/11 of magic. And I said, okay.
Oh, my God.
So I delivered the line, I don't know, 12 times.
Yes.
We just kept doing stuff over and over again and commenting on things. And, I picked up Piff to fly with him, which is a David Copperfield routine that a lot of people have stolen, right? And as soon as I started to pick him up, the phone rang. And I said, oh, hi, David. Yeah. You're going to sue us? No. It was Piff's idea. We go on like that.
Yeah.
But then I said, listen, if you don't sue us, every week we'll buff your jet. Right? I said, Piff will buff your jet. We got off the phone, and Piff said, I'll buff his jet? And I said, yes. He said, is that a euphemism? Now, that got a nice laugh.
Yeah.
But then Piff said, Handsome Jack wrote that line, and he wrote 3 versions. I hope that's not a euphemism. Is that a euphemism? And, that's a euphemism. He wrote those 3 lines and then argued with himself about which one was funnier. So he said, let's do all 3. So I had to keep setting him up with Buff Your Jet. We did it over and over again. And we also did other jokes that are in such bad taste, I'm not even going to repeat them here.
So worse than the ones you have mentioned thus far.
Worse than the 9/11 of magic. Very offensive.
Yeah.
And the other funny thing is this is coming from the guy whose your career started with, we're exposing magic tricks. When
exactly.
we're the bad guys, which
exactly.
it really fun.
So we go through, and then I start doing a list of magic tricks I want to do, right? I said, we could do snowstorm in China. He goes, nope. I go, we could do floating ball. He goes, nope. I said, we could do shadows. He goes, nope. Someone else's. I go, we could do spectators' urine to impossible location. We could do, and I name another 3. And he goes, whoa, back up. I go, snowstorm in China? He goes, no. Right after that. I go, spectators' urine to impossible location? He said, yeah, that hasn't been done. I said, okay, let's do that. So Piff pulls out a urine specimen jar and says, we need someone to pee on stage. And the audience kind of goes, what? 800 people simultaneously go, what? And I go, no, we're not kidding. We need someone to come up and pee in this urine sample on stage. And there's another pause. And I said, come on, somebody. Now, I'd said the night before, I don't like to use stooges, but we were at the dinner table at a vegan restaurant in Orlando with Kostya Kimlet, who looks exactly like Kevin Spacey. And I wanted to tell him that again, but all I can do is think, ooh, Kevin Spacey. But he's not. He's Kostya Kimlet. And by the way, he is from Ukraine. He's from Ukraine.
Oh.
And he says now when he says he's from Ukraine, he gets applause. Like this is what's going to bring down Trump. Yay, you're from Ukraine. Used to be, people said, is that in South America?
Yeah.
Now they go, good. So Kostya Kimblin, I said to him, listen, we're going to try to get a real person from the audience on stage and pee, but there may be a lot of people who are pee shy. I know may do it. Why don't you, if no one else volunteers, volunteer? And Kostya said, I don't think I can do that. I said, you don't think you can pee in front of, and his new wife was there. And I said, how embarrassing to have to admit that in front of your wife, that you're not able to pee in public. That's horrible. I said, I'm sorry I had to see this. I'm so embarrassed for you. But I said to Kostya, you really can't? He said, I don't think I can. I don't think I can. And he said, could you? I said, yes, right now in this restaurant in front of everybody, I could easily, but you can't? Okay, sorry. So then something happened that even surprised me and Piff, which was a woman raised her hand, which we had never considered that possibility.
This was at the show.
At the show.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we're not thinking we're still at dinner.
No, not at dinner. we're at the show. We're on stage, and a woman says, she raises her hand and says, I'll do it. And I said, well, we haven't got a funnel or anything. And she said,
girl.
I'll do it. And we said, I just have a few questions. I go, okay. And she said, can I do it off stage? And I said, no one else got their hand up. I guess we'll have to. So she comes up on stage, and she's in her early 20s and very attractive, and comes up on stage, and she's wearing a long skirt, and we bring out the cloak of invisibility to Mac King's music, because that's Mac King's bit. So we're stealing from him too, right? And so Jade brings out a shroud to put around her, and we give her what we now realize is much too small urine sample bottle.
No.
And she then says to me something and there's no kidding, there's no exaggeration here. There's nothing here. This is just completely honest. This very young woman looks at me, and now Piff is doing shtickala, right? And all this stuff's going on, and there's all this heat on Piff. And for a moment, in that way that happens on stage, that you can only understand if you've been on stage in a deep improv situation, it's really now the two of us.
Yeah.
I mean, in principle, my mic is on. Right.
Yeah.
In principle, all the lights are on us, but you can feel in the room that everybody's looking at Piff, because Piff has, 90 seconds of jokes he's going to do about this that are already written in the script, whoever we get on stage. But he's also modifying them for a woman, and that's interesting. And Piff is doing really well. But I'm alone with this stranger on stage who's about to give us a urine sample. And she turns to me and says one of the most beautiful things anyone's ever said. She looks at me and goes, I've been studying comedy really seriously. I want to be in comedy really seriously. And the first thing I've learned is that you have to do anything for the joke. And that's why I'm here. And I really thought I was going to tear up and cry. And I said, you're one of us. And she said, yeah. And then the attention came. It was like everybody went away.
Oh,
like
funny.
800 people just split. And she and I had a conversation. And I felt, 64-year-old man, whatever, 22-year-old woman, there was a complete imbalance of experience and everything else. And then instantly, we were the exact same person. Instantly, there was a complete bonding. And I put the curtain around her, and I was very, very, although Jade was holding it to give her privacy, I was very far away. Of course, she had a long skirt anyway and a shroud around her.
You're respectful.
Yes, as respectful as you can be once you've asked someone to pee on stage. We're dealing with a certain situation here. And
what's weird is that she had actually just gone 14 days without water.
And ran a marathon.
So it's a real challenge.
I wondered why she was barefoot and 2 toes missing.
Right.
And she kind of got into position, and I'm there. And so Piff is still kind of going, I guess we're doing this. I guess it's going. And she hands me out the bottle, and I put the cap on. Now, Piff is a little squeamish about everything. And those who know me know that I'm not squeamish about anything. So she hands it to me, and I kind of just wipe it off on my hands so that it'll be dry for Piff. And then
This
because
is like her nightmare.
it really is a magic trick, right? I have her sign the bottle, right? So she's written her name on it. And then we hold it up to a camera on stage, and I comment that it's still warm. And there's also it wasn't completely successful in getting all in the bottles. There's a patch on stage that is a little bit moist. And Piff is kind of flipped out.
That's her territory now.
Yes, exactly. So I show it and the entire audience is sitting there going, is this happening? And if they set this up, it's really no better.
Right.
Yeah. And they're also asking, did she really do it?
Right.
Which also doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. But I'm really uncomfortable having her do this because I feel there's an imbalance, and I want to know her.
And the 100 times you ran the scenario through your head every day leading up to this day, you never pictured a woman volunteering for this trick.
Never pictured
Well, it's
a
a
woman.
magic convention. There are only 8 there.
And I never pictured a young woman.
Right.
What I pictured was a frat boy.
Yeah.
That's what I pictured. I knew we were going to get a frat boy, some young magician guy who would come up and it would be great. And, but we get this woman who has the clarity of her eyes and the clarity of her intent and the fact that she had absolutely bonded with me. Right then I would have taken a bullet for her. She was the greatest person alive to me. And also saying I'm studying comedy made it so much more powerful to me. I've decided, she's sitting in the audience going, I'm learning about this. This is what you do. So she went from interested amateur to hardcore professional. And you run through your head and you go, Jerry Lewis, Steve Martin, Alan King, Phyllis Diller, Joan Rivers, they're all on that stage instantly. No, not one of them hesitates.
Oh, yeah.
Not one of the pros hesitates. Not one. Not one that's ever existed hesitates. No astronaut hesitates. Only dull people hesitate, And she has now come to the ranks. She is now at the level, in my mind, of Lenny Bruce. She's gone from just, there's a woman in the audience that's coming up on stage to now I'm standing next to someone who could be the comedy voice 5 years from now, And so we show it there. And then we do another joke that shocks people tremendously, where I say to Piff, now Piff's put rubber gloves on, and he's still squeamish. The rubber gloves are part of the joke, but he's still squeamish with it, right? And I say, now Piff, you vanish it. And Piff goes, why do I have to vanish it? And I say, because you're wearing the $3,000 holdout. He has a device up his sleeve to vanish it, which we tip. And I also get this great email from someone that says, I can't believe you commented on Piff's holdout on stage. He looked so shocked when you said it and so angry. I couldn't believe that you were even willing to cross that line and give away the magic method. And I wrote back, Piff wrote that line. It's in the prompter. And they went, oh, okay. You're playing with a level.
Yeah, by the way.
If you think she's willing to do anything for a joke, so's Piff.
Yeah.
So it vanishes. But
P.S. This is your only comment about the performance you just saw tonight?
So Piff does the vanish. And then Piff says, in order for being up here, we want to give you a gift. And we open a locked chest. In the locked chest, a lockbox. In the lockbox, another lockbox. Lockbox, another lockbox. In the lockbox, there's a huge roll of toilet paper. And we unroll it. And in it is her actual urine sample signed, which we showed her. It's actually a really good magic trick. And we send her back to her seat. And
With her urine.
What's that? With her urine signed.
When he came up with it, he was so mad that it was gross because he was like, I finally have a trick that I really want to do. And I can't do it.
He did it once before, needless to say, in New Zealand.
Yes.
And in New Zealand, he got a guy who was with a bachelor party, and his friends chanted, chug it, chug it, chug it. So he opened his urine sample and drank it.
Oh.
And
And that tells you everything you need to know about New Zealand.
Yes. But nothing new about New Zealand. So he'd only done it once before. So
Pee-wees.
we sent her back to her we sent her back to her seat, and the audience remained perplexed. And then I said, but there's one thing we have to bring up, the Nick DeFat thing. And then, once again, in the spirit that she said she was learning about comedy, she became the inspiration. You know, the fact that someone's taking it so seriously. I love the fact she took it that seriously. I say, I want, this is 9/11 of magic. We do all of that. We're going to bring out Nick DeFat. So Nick DeFat comes out, which shocks the audience, because Nick DeFat has been saying that Piff's the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
And Nick comes out, and I stand behind them. And Piff, as you know, is not particularly tall.
Right.
And Nick DeFat is about the same height. So I've got two small people, and then I'm towering over them. And I go, okay, shake hands. And the two of them reluctantly shake hands. Nick knew about that. And then I go, okay, hug. And reluctantly, the two of them hug. Nick knew about that. And then I say, okay, kiss. Nick didn't know about that. So Piff goes, okay, and grabs him and kisses him on the lips. And once again, I see what professionals look like, because Nick is startled for a second?
Split second.
And then leans into it. So they're kissing. And
In his pocket were 2 bottles of urine. ready
to go.
Ready coming from backstage.
Ready to go.
Just be like.
And then Nick says, oh, thank you so much. Feels so good. I brought a little something for you. He turns on the air dancer, which is just like, oh, so Nick really does know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then Piff and I leave the stage, and Nick's out there alone and turns on the other air dancer that says, fuck you! And then he walks off stage. That was our performance at Genii.
I love it.
Wow.
How did the crowd respond?
Randy Pitchford and Handsome Jack, Piff and I both had shows to do, so we had to leave. I had to leave early the next morning. He left the next day pretty early. So they heard response. And here's the thing that is a real credit to magicians. Randy Pitchford said, all positive. People say the only question was she set up? That was the only question, which bothered Piff, because Piff was going, well, that's not a good trick.
Right.
Because then we could have had her signature, and it actually was a really good trick. But that was the question. And then he said the few people that had reservations and complained about it were only people who were complaining about it just to prove to others that they'd been there. Well, I left out one thing. That was really, really important.
She was a plant.
No, but close to that. So there was no backstage, no green room. So Piff and a bunch of us took couches and put them in the hallway. So while the other shows are going on in the other dealers' rooms and stuff, we're just in the hallway. People are walking by. And this one guy looking kind of very alternative, very, scraggly beard and dressed very fashionably for right now, for someone in their 20s, walks by with a woman that we presume he was dating. And they get very, very impressed meeting me. And although I'm in the middle of a conversation with Piff, he comes up and says, I really hate to bother you. Do me a big, 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 big favor. Would you sign this for me? And I said, certainly. And I go take a picture with him. And then as he's walking away, I look over at Piff and I smile and I say, would you do me a really big, big favor? He says, yeah, anything. I said, can you pee on command on stage in front of a bunch of people? He says, yeah. I said, I'm going to ask for someone to pee into a bottle on stage, and you'll be my last go-to, but if I need somebody, can I go to you? And his date says, oh, that'd be great. And he goes, yeah, I can do that. I said, you sure? Because I'm not bluffing. You may think asking you if you're going to pee on stage is bluffing. I'm not bluffing. I said, go to my Wikipedia page and find out, does Penn bluff? I said, it's there. I don't. I said, I'm telling the truth. He said, no, I'll do it. I go, good. Boom, 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 boom. Now, the show went up 45 minutes to an hour late, right? So that's important to the story. So we get to that point where I say spectators urine in an impossible location. Oh, we also did a really nice thing, which after the urine vanished, Piff said we have to make it reappear, and I said, who has to pee? It appeared in his bladder. And that was the fake ending, right? So that the nest of boxes would be another surprise. So before we get the person up on stage, I go, someone's going to pee on stage. And she has not raised her hand. Her name was Katrina. She has not raised her hand yet. And I'm looking around. I'm getting a little desperate. So I say, listen, the guy was in the hallway before the show. That guy promised me he'd raise his hand. Where's his hand? And the woman who was with him says, sorry, Penn, he got tired during the last act and went home. I said he went home before we came on? This is this huge fan who's so excited about meeting me, he can't stay an extra 45 minutes to see his bro. Fuck him. That was the end of him. So that was our one setup. Kostya, who could not pee on command.
Right.
And then the other guy who gets tired. He gets tired. I always get, when someone in their 20s gets too tired to do something, I always tell them, I did not sleep until I was 30. From 18 to 30, I did not doze off once. And then from 30 to 40, it was very rare.
Yeah.
Now I sleep. Fine. But if someone asked me, if when I was 21, 22, if someone said to me, we're going to be doing a show, and will you come on stage and pee in a bottle as part of our show? I would have stayed up for 3 days in the cold, running in the desert with no water. Not peeing.
Not peeing.
No, save it for the show.
So bad when that show came.
Save it for the show.
Thank goodness they called me.
Save it for the show. So that was, and it's been phenomenally positive.
I have to tell you,
Yeah.
you, by being a good person, laid one of my favorite private bits to rest. A bit that lost no interest and no heat for me over time. A bit I was content to do the rest of my life. Which is anytime I passed any business with an air dancer, I took a photo of it, sent it to Piff, being like, these motherfuckers just ripped off Nick DeFat. So I was like, this pool cleaner just ripped off Nick DeFat. This used car lot ripped off Nick DeFat. And I just did it to him every day, all the time, anytime I saw an air dancer. Yeah. And when you told me that you had resolved this conflict between the two of them, I was like, oh my God, my bit is over.
Well,
the bit is over.
One of the jokes I wrote for Piff.
Yeah.
Piff delivered this, but I'm the one that, it was my idea. Piff delivered it beautifully. I said, you ripped off Nick DeFat by using an air dancer on America's Got Talent, where you'd lost. And Piff said, I ripped off Nick DeFat by using an air dancer? Does that mean every used car salesman in Arizona has ripped off Nick DeFat? Every used car salesman? That was
Yeah.
We did that.
You could probably just scroll through all my photo texts to make that bit.
So that was our show.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'm 64 years old, and I was backstage with Nick DeFat because Piff did 40 minutes before we came on. And that's when the guy left. And I was backstage with Nick DeFat, and I said, I am so fucking nervous. I am so nervous. And he went, really? I went, yeah, I'm just scared to death. I just loved so much that in that moment on stage, not only did she become a peer of mine, but I became a peer of hers.
Yeah.
I liked so much they were out there doing something that none of us had any experience with. Mm-hmm. No idea how it was going to play, nothing. And I think beyond improv, you know what I mean? Improv has some sort of structure. But I really felt like we were on stage just trying to do something that people would never forget.
Yeah.
And I loved that she was part of it and that we were all there on the edge. And I loved the way I felt. I loved that I felt nauseated and I felt nervous and I felt scared. I just loved that feeling so much. I love that I don't think that if you hooked us up to, all sorts of blood pressure and heart rating meters, I believe that she and I would have registered the same. It was not like, I just felt like I was on stage with a punk band at 21 years old. I did not feel like I, had a theater in Vegas, went out and did my show over and over again. Just a great feeling.
I think anyone who saw you do that bit would know that you weren't thinking about that you had a theater with your name on it back in Los
But it was a whole different. It was really a different experience.
Yeah.
And then I saw her backstage afterwards. She came back. She wanted to get posters signed and stuff. And I signed her poster with, "I will never wash my hands again."
It's so inspiring what you said, though. That's going to be my new motto that's going to run through my head, is you saying, "Only dull people hesitate."
Yeah.
That's very inspiring.
Well, that was Johnny. That was Johnny Thompson. Johnny Thompson said yes to everything, instantly, everything instantly, and also everything instantly without negotiating. That's the other thing. Johnny Teller told this at Johnny's memorial. There were a lot of mob guys that owned nightclubs. I guess I'm not giving away any big secret.
Hold on a minute.
Huh?
And he said that they would ask if you'd play their club. And he said everybody else would say, "How much do I get? How many nights am I doing?" Johnny said yes. Johnny just said yes. And he said
lead without negotiation.
he would always find out that he's the one that was paid the most and all those stuff. And I look back on the thing, and when we asked Johnny to be our consultant and work full-time for us, I remember the entire negotiation was Johnny said yes. I remember we were talking and saying, "What are we paying Johnny?" And we said, "Oh, Johnny never mentioned anything." And it's that idea. I mean, I'm putting the money in it, which muddies the water a little bit. But just that simple yes. I mean, how bad can it be?
Right.
You know what I mean? How bad can it be to just say yes to an offer that comes along, especially one that scares you, and especially one that's goofy? Just kind of go, "Yeah, I'm down."
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see if 10 years from now someone comes up who is just brilliant in the arts and is doing an in-depth interview and goes, "When I knew I was a professional, I was in Orlando at a magician's convention."
Yeah.
And I went on stage to do that. And when you think about, that's the thing that always surprises me and that you always forget. That was a shocking event, and the stakes were amazingly low, right? No chance of getting hurt. Really, zero chance of getting hurt. Really, I guess there's chance of embarrassment. Who cares? It's just that one of the wonderful things about art is it can feel like it's so important and so dangerous, and yet it is completely harmless. It's the most beautiful thing. Dylan goes electric,
Right.
and the whole world blows up, and all it is playing music. It's nothing else, but it can feel that importance. And that both of those things are true is just that beautiful, gorgeous thing that I just loved. And I tell you, I think if she hadn't said that, I would have been uncomfortable. Of course, no one could accuse us of pressuring her into it.
Right.
She's one of 800 people. There were 799 people who didn't feel pressured.
Right.
She had to actually take the step. But her actually saying that, and she gave me just this huge gift of reminding me why I was in show business.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine, Eddie Gordetsky, who is one of the only people who's won an Emmy on, let me see, Saturday Night Live, David Letterman, and he's also one of the creators, writes on Big Bang Theory, 2.5 Men. This new show, Bobby loves, that show is his. Probably, along with Chuck Lorre, was his partner, one of the most successful comedy writers in the world. And I remember he was being interviewed by a young, there was a young guy who was just trying to break into comedy and asked Eddie if he could talk to him about what it meant to be in comedy. And Eddie said, when the guy asked him, well, do you feel like you're committed to it or whatever? Eddie said, I would dig up my dead mother's corpse and fuck it right now if I thought it would get a good solid laugh.
That's commitment.
Eddie, it just did.
Exactly. I mean, that's the level that you're in to be that good.
Yeah.
That's the level that you're in to be that good, to be that hardcore. And I remember this. It's famously Tallulah Bankhead, right?
Yeah.
Who said, "Darling, there is nothing I will not do for a laugh."
Yeah.
You know, it was wonderful to be on stage with Tallulah Bankhead at 23.
Right.
Which incidentally, I made up her age, but you know, young 20s, early 20s. And it was just a great experience. And also, you know, Piff and I on stage just have so much fun together. And being in that gesture suit gives you this whole level of power that's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, this whole story is going on and thinking about the fact you were dressed as a dragon.
Yeah, dressed as a dragon for the whole thing. Yeah, I was in a dragon suit, and it was it was nice. It was nice being in a dragon suit on
Underwear?
stage. I was wearing underwear. I think the Piff does too.
Yeah.
But Piff always thinks he probably shouldn't be. But Piff which is what makes it even better. You know, Piff is a very conservative guy.
Yeah.
He's essentially very, very staid and conservative, and he puts on that dragon suit, and something else happens.
The truth.
It's just great.
It's like when someone doesn't get his act and doesn't and refers to him as a person and a dragon and be like, it was so sarcastic and blah, blah, blah. You're kind of like, oh, yeah. Like if you don't get anything, I guess you're right. Like there's no argument against it when you want to strip it all away. But if you actually give any iota to context and like what's happening, it's so fun.
Can we also sing the praises of Jade for a moment?
Yes.
I mean, Jade, who's Piff's assistant, Jade Simone, who comes out in her showgirl outfit. You know, you say to Jade, and then you'll come out and you'll put the shroud around someone and you'll hold it. You and Penn will hold it while someone pees behind the shroud. She just goes, okay.
You could have told her on the spot, Jade, we need you to pee also. And she
Yeah, exactly. Jade,
No problem.
Jade is right there, there.
Yeah.
Commitment, very, very, very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important stuff. Oh, I also want to say, this quickly. Eric Mingus, Charles Mingus's son,
Right.
came to our show.
Really?
And as you remember, he wrote a note in to Ready Rich because I was asked if I was around Charles Mingus, who would hit first. Who would first hit? And I answered, well, Mingus would hit me because he's a violent guy, was a violent guy, and I've never hit anybody in my life, so it's a no-brainer. And his son wrote in and said that may not be true. And Ready Rich reported that to me. And Eric Mingus, who's a musician and a poet, and I've kind of dug into some of the stuff he's done. There's a video, Eric Mingus, there's a video of him in a jail in Ireland, I think, a big empty jail. It's a performance piece where he sings while walking through the jail with that echo. And he's an incredible blues singer. Went to Berklee School of Music. Incredible and a wonderful guy and a fabulous poet that he's singing through there that's breathtaking. And he said to me, I don't think Ready Rich gave you I did not explain it right to Ready Rich. When I said I wasn't sure that my father would hit you first, I was trying to explain that you have no idea how annoying my father was. He said, even a peacenik like you might punch him in the face. He said, people, he died when Eric was 14, I think. So Eric knew him, but I knew him as a 14-year-old boy. But, he told me this real, Eric Mingus is a great upright bass player. And he said his career was kind of, he's uncomfortable with it because Mingus's drummer, Charles Mingus's drummer, when Eric was playing upright bass, said to him, "Hey kid, do you realize how fucking good you've got to be on that to play it?" Just yeah. It's like Jacob Dylan. Good move, Jacob. You're playing guitar, you're singing, writing your songs. Good move.
Yeah.
That name can help you, but also, woof. That kind of thing. But Eric Mingus, a new buddy of mine. I really like him, and I suggest strongly you look into his music and his poetry. It's good.
I guess who am I quoting? But I don't think it says Bob Dylan's son on the check.
That's Johnny Thompson.
Oh yeah.
Who says it Doesn't say asshole on the check. When you get a job that people make fun of you for.
Right.
Doesn't say asshole on the check. Exactly. So there we go. We talked a little bit about being in show business. We didn't get a chance to talk. We got a lot of new listeners because of Joe Rogan.
Thank you.
Because of that podcast.
Welcome.
And I love Joe. And a lot of them came in the middle of our conversation about good and evil.
Okay.
And Reddy Rich thinks we should recap that. So I think next week we'll recap a little bit.
You new listeners are the ones that have, Penn wants to go a little more deep and philosophical on this show now.
Which I didn't. I talked about peeing on stage.
You got pretty deep on that peeing on stage.
Maybe a little bit. But anyway, whatever that was Penn Sunday School.
Whatever that was.
Whatever it was.
We'll call it Penn Sunday School.
You become naked on stage behind a shroud. And tonight I'll be doing the new bit again. You'll see the new bit. Let's see if I can. Oh, the whole thing I wanted to talk about. Well, I'll get to it next week.
Yeah.
You know I love you.